And for those students or pranayama practitioners who does not know me, my name is Sofia, and I'm one of the leading teachers here in our yoga school in Phuket. Some of you already practice with us, some are not. And I will do some hours of the pranayama training during this course. This course, as you know, will have 2 hours of theory and 2 hours of the practice every day, every Saturday and Sunday when we do this. And today I do this introduction, but starting from next class, which starts after 2.5 hours with another teacher, Rich, he will start the practice. He will continue to run these theory classes. This course will have more emphasis on a practical aspect, on anatomical aspect. When we start talking today about the general concept of pranayama, the concept of prana or vital energy, about subtle anatomy, about different approaches to pranayama practice, we will see that this is so essential in the very beginning to create a right foundation for the technical side and right foundation for the anatomical understanding. And all these practices related to visualizations, related to this managing of the energy within the energy channels, this is quite advanced practice, which will come if you practice regularly, consistently, daily, yeah? And at some point it comes. Sorry, some more people come just here in front of me. Yeah. So Rich will take the theory classes starting from tomorrow for your group, and he will take his time to explain technical aspect of each practice. So we have selected number of pranayama practices for the course, and each practice we are going to study in details. In more details that we normally do here during this TTC 200 hours or some other courses, intensive courses. He will keep explaining techniques during the theory classes for some time, so that you know in details how to practice, because we would like you to practice every day, Monday to Friday, on your own. Yeah? So for the best result. And also to get the skill, because some of you we don't know personally. Of course, when we start practice together, we can still see through the camera or in person who is here, how you do. We can adjust you also. We are always open for the feedbacks and questions. That's why we also have this group chat where you can ask the questions, where we can provide extra information. So we will be in touch. We are going to supervise your course individually. Yeah. And but first we will establish the practical foundation. So, and when you know how to practice every day on your own, Monday to Friday, you will follow the guidelines. We will pay more attention. After that, we will pay more attention to this philosophy stuff. Yeah. So that we make sure that you practice correctly. That's why in the beginning we have more time for the practical aspects. Okay. Sorry for that. And today we have this with me, this first session. We have more like introduction, overview. We have to understand the concept of pranayama and its role and function in the whole system of yoga. And since it might be a little bit heavy for those students who are not much into this philosophy, religion, whatever, so we will do maybe around 50 minutes of non-stop, and then we have 5 to 7 minutes break to refresh yourself, go to the bathroom, and then we start again up to 12 o'clock Thailand time. Because I know that it might be a little bit challenging, 2 hours non-stop, all this philosophy stuff. So for the better perception, we would need to make a little bit of break. Yeah? And I prepared some presentations to share on the screen. So to illustrate what I say, and for you guys, I have the printed version a little bit. So when we come to this points, then we can share all the information. And I think I will also share with you in WhatsApp Messenger the list of recommended readings specifically for the pranayama, because there are not many resources, not many books, like real books on pranayama, and we will, some of them are really good that I can recommend, so you can deepen your knowledge. Okay, and first of all, I wanted to say before we start to talk more in details that within yoga world, let's a little bit make it more particular, Indian yoga, because yoga might be not Indian also. Within Indian yoga, there are different schools, lineages, different approach to the practice. Sometimes different understanding of the same practices, even sometimes a little bit different understanding of the general concept of yoga, and also understanding of pranayama. So don't be confused. Sometimes you read in this book like this, actually I will give you examples afterwards, what I mean. And then another book about the same topic, very different information. This teacher teaches like that, another teacher teaches like that. It's a little bit confusing. So when it comes to Indian traditional yoga schools, who has lineage, who has this lineage of transmission and empowerment of their practices and their knowledge from teacher to disciple throughout centuries and thousands of years, they have particular very accurate teaching about the things, and you can always track back where does it come from. I don't talk about modern Western yoga, because now Westerns they actually try to modify many things, and sometimes don't belong to any tradition. I don't say it's bad, it's not bad, it's just a different way. So, but when we talk about traditional Indian schools, there is always particular way how to do the things. That might differ from school to school. One of my teachers said that yoga, this is like music. There is no only one style of music. There are different ways and branches, and this is very normal. So try to be open-minded. And when we talk about the practices and approach, I will refer sometimes to this school of yoga or to that school of yoga, how they do in Ashtanga, how they do in Bihar school of yoga, So it may be different. Even this, for example, Bhastrika pranayama that everybody probably knows, it might be quite different. Somewhere they do abdominal manipulation, somewhere they don't do abdominal manipulation, or like many things. Quite interesting. Same comes into the understanding of yoga sutras, and yoga philosophy also may be different, depending on the source, depending on a particular teacher. But what unites Indian schools, what makes them traditional Indian schools, that they have same system of values and same system of goals. They may have different methods. Methods means like different asana practice, different pranayama practice here and there. They may have different combination of spiritual practice or sadhana, where it includes mantras, recitation, and or rituals also and stuff like that. But the main ideas, general ideas about understanding the absolute consciousness, individual consciousness, and all the things related to that is normally very similar or the same. When it comes to Western schools, more emphasis comes into this, maybe therapy aspects, maybe more body workout aspects, and maybe some psychological aspect to improve the quality of life, to release the tension, through the yoga practices. So just improve the overall being, well-being, not about these higher goals of self-realization. Okay, but when it comes to pranayama probably you already know, but just let me mention, because whatever we are going to talk here, we are going to talk in the context of pranayama practice. Normally we do a lot in context of asana practice when it comes to 200 hours teacher training course. But now we have pranayama course and we have more emphasis on the pranayama and its concept. Okay, so as you know, just brief explanation that prana means a vital energy that sustains everything in the universe, either animate or inanimate. We all have this certain quantum of prana, certain frequency of vibration. So prana is like a matrix all over the world, universe, not world, yeah, universe. And you have your own individual prana as well. We will talk about subtle anatomy, we will talk about energy channels, about how it all circulates, how pranayama practice affects on that. All of that we will study, not today, but after we study technical things, we will jump into the subtle anatomy things, which is quite interesting, I find. Yeah. And pranayama, this is actually the practice, number of the practices, the system, which directly works with the vital energy through the control of the breath in a different ways. But control of the breath requires a high degree of concentration. Because if there is no concentration, there is no way we can take a control of the breath. It's not only the blah blah, it's really like practicing with people for a number of years, we can see this importance of concentration. Even for the basic techniques, even for extension of the breath and making equal inhalation and exhalation, it requires some degree of concentration. I don't talk about very advanced stages of control of the breath, but even the basic things, sometimes some people cannot perform because cannot concentrate, simply. Yeah. And in the whole system of yoga, pranayama has its big and huge place. But let me first explain you quickly about because I'm going to share the screen now, that illustrate what I'm talking about. And for you guys, I will do this print version of because I wanted to show you the different branches of yoga and where exactly pranayama belongs to. So I'm very new to this sharing the screen. I actually tried it before. Okay. So can you see or not? No? Can you see? Okay, good. Guys, maybe you take this one. Yeah, you have a look. Okay, let me scroll a little bit. Like this. Normally, if you talk about yoga in a system, we can briefly divide into different branches, but it doesn't mean that this school and that school strictly follow only this branch and only this approach. Actually, Indian schools, they can take all of them or some of them, yeah? So, because it's quite complex. But just a quick overview, because we need to place pranayama somewhere here, where pranayama belongs mostly. So jnana yoga or yoga of knowledge, this is mostly when we go deep inside ourselves through the self-inquiry, through the meditation and internal practices. When we talk about the sources where they can read all this authentic information, I will also let you know. And Bhakti Yoga, Yoga of Devotion, this is sometimes we can find this aspect in religious institutions, but traditional Indian yoga has a huge part of bhakti as well. This is the rituals also, and surrender to God, dedicating all actions and intentions to the divine. Karma yoga, this is normally I would say this is yoga of action, where we do the actions without craving for the result and dedicating all the results to the divine or absolute consciousness. Raja Yoga, royal path, this is concentration, meditation, and final stage of the classical yoga state of self-realization. And mantra also, This is normally Raja Yoga, this is the highest form of yoga, and Hatha Yoga, this is the preparation for Raja Yoga. Hatha Yoga literally means yoga of effort, which includes asana, pranayama. It has a huge external component. It doesn't mean it has no concentration or no any other aspects that we just mentioned. You need to have some degree of concentration to perform pranayama, of course, or asana also. And Hatha Yoga also includes shatkarmas or cleansing techniques, which all described in authentic Indian texts. So, in the whole world of yoga, pranayama normally is more presented in the Hatha Yoga forms, Hatha Yoga schools. Because there are some yoga schools that don't have asana, don't have physical exercising. They mostly emphasize on pranayama and internal techniques using the consciousness. And this is quite interesting. So when we talk about pranayamas, we mostly talk in the context of a Hatha Yoga. But we will also talk a little bit about Jnana Yoga, a little bit about Raja Yoga for sure, because I cannot go anywhere without Raja Yoga. And we'll talk about, today we will talk briefly about the goals of yoga. What for? Everything actually. Okay. Because for the yoga practitioner and for the yoga teacher, specifically, if you, for example, teach pranayama or asana or any other techniques within yoga, we must understand what for. What for? Why we do this? And since yoga is a big system which has a number of the practices within that all interconnected, interdependent practices and also disciplines, we also need to understand how they all come together for this achieving the goal of yoga or self-realization. And for the pranayama course, we have to understand clearly what is the role of pranayama in this, the whole system. And when we know it clearly, then we understand easily the techniques. Why? I don't want to say that we cannot practice pranayama just for the improving the health, improving the concentration, and just feeling better ourselves. Of course, this is quite important. We need it. But we have to also know the traditional approach to the yoga practices, including pranayama. Okay. And we we move on. So we don't need this slide anymore. I will close it now. Okay. And okay. Sorry for that. I am very new to this digital techniques. Okay, so maybe I will send you also more information about this classification of yoga. There's also mantra yoga, and some others also, but I will mention them now. I will mention them now. Also when we proceed further on. Okay. And Let's talk briefly, very briefly, about the system of classical yoga and its role of pranayama within it. First of all, we start from the general concepts and then we come into more practical details. The goal of pranayama and the goal of yoga, which is the same, just pranayama, this is the tool in the system of yoga to achieve this or that state of consciousness. Because the whole system of yoga is either Hatha yoga, Raja yoga, whatever we know, any system of yoga, it's all designed initially for the purpose of bringing the consciousness in the state of self-realization. We talk about the highest goal. Of course, on the path, we achieve a lot of benefits, like a physical health, mental clarity, even supernatural powers if you're advanced practitioners. I cannot guarantee you get the supernatural powers during the course, but just for you to know that it's possible. So the history knows examples of that. When we talk about self-realization, normally I start this topic when we do this 200 hours course also, just to highlight the priorities and guidelines for us and understanding also. The state of self-realization, if you look to this self-realization, these two words, self-realization, the realization of the self. And then you say, ask, what is the self? Realize what? We talk in the context of traditional Indian yoga now. So in traditional Indian yoga, the self or true self, this is your internal and eternal essence. Everyone has, in a Christian background probably you can refer to soul, but it's not really accurate. But if you have Christian background, maybe you can refer to that a little bit. But if not a Christian background, then we can say divine nature or divine nature. Or if you have Buddhist background, this is the state of enlightenment, where you realize your true, eternal nature. It's all described in texts that I'm going to mention this during this class, because we have to know where to refer, to read more about this and to study more. So we need to know where this is described and how pranayama is directly linked with that. So self-realization, this is the state of the consciousness where we have direct experience of ourselves as eternal, divine, not being separated from any object or being in the universe. For the Western mentality, it might be a little bit uncomfortable, this concept, because we like to think that we are very different from everyone and this is what makes us unique, and we normally from the early age we try to be special, not the same as everyone. But when it comes to Eastern philosophy, specifically now we talk about Indian philosophy, yoga philosophy, which has practical aspect, huge practical aspect, that actually the goal of all the practices to have this state of self-realization or being or experience ourselves as universal consciousness. So it means you've never been born, you will never die, you are everywhere, always. So you expand to universal awareness. Because normally it's not happening normally, because I'm just making very, how to say, short and briefly, because it's a big topic. Normally we identify ourselves with the mental states, means that I identify myself with emotions right now. I have this emotion, means this is me. Yeah, I identify myself. Or identify myself with my body. This is my body. I have this age, this gender. This is me. Or identify myself with my family relationships, or my career, or my whatever environment, cultural environment. Yeah, what makes me me. But according to yoga philosophy, this is impermanent because our beliefs change. Our body change, and it will die apparently sooner or later. Yeah, it will die anyway. So what has the beginning has end. My body has the beginning. Yeah, there was a time when my body did not exist. So it will be the time when my body will not exist anymore. Normally we don't like to think about it, but there are a number of yoga practices which are encouraging us to think about the death, that we'll be more aware about impermanence of it, impermanence of the body. Yeah? And your true self will never die. It's always been and always will be. 5 million years ago and 5 million years after, always. Intellectually, it might be not comfortable to think about it because it's a different category, different dimension. When we talk about 5 layers of the human being, the physical body and the vital energy body, which is related to pranayama practices, mental body, higher mental body, all these things, we will see how it's all interconnected, and we will also see the internal and eternal component of our beings, and what is impermanent and how it's all interconnected. It's quite interesting. So because there are, one of the teachers in the lineage of Ashtanga, Krishnamacharya, was saying that practice without theory is blind. Yeah? But he was also saying that through pranayama we can reach the state of self-realization. Yeah? Quite interesting. Because in a classical yoga which has 8 parts, 8 parts of the different disciplines and practices, and the final part is the self-realization, they have pranayama as their part number 4. Yeah? So which is quite big, important aspect of Indian Hatha Yoga. Okay, so we just highlight a little bit of the goal of yoga practices. In fact, it relates to any yoga practice, even cleansing of the nasal passages, or physical exercising, which is asana, or pranayama practices through the breath, and some other. They all designed initially to help the practitioner on the path of self-realization, journey towards self-realization, where there is no suffering anymore. Yeah? So it's sometimes self-realization is called liberation, and when we talk about liberation, we normally have to understand liberation from what? And liberation from conditioned existence. When we talk about a little bit of subconscious mind and how the energy, condition of the energy channels is related to conditions of the mind, it's very interesting, yeah? And how it affects on the physical body, like how this stress affects on circulation of energy in the channels within the body, and effect on the performance of the physical body. So mental condition affects on energy and effects on a body. This is so interesting. So we will study it all in details, yeah, and support with the practice. This is what we talk about. Okay. So it would be nice to talk also about the system of the classical yoga, because it has information about pranayama. But first of all, I would like to start a brief, very brief, short and historical overview of the evidence of the earliest pranayama practices. Yeah, the earliest pranayama practices, what we have in a system of Indian yoga, and in what sense and they were understood. Yeah, because now in the modern world, we have a lot of materials about different pranayama techniques, so you can even go to YouTube and find so many different things. But the most authentic texts, they also have evidence on pranayama. It's interesting. Just to remind you, when we start talking about it now, pranayama is related specifically in an ancient context of ancient texts. This is used mostly as the practices to manage the vital energy. So we already know that prana, this is vital energy, sometimes translated as the breath as well. But vital energy, this circulates in our body through the energy channels, and we have this vital energy within ourselves, and we also have it everywhere. Oh, by the way, in one of the ancient texts they say that if we have less energy, vital energy within the body, less than outside, then we feel unwell. They say someone who is troubled, restless or confused has less prana inside rather than outside. It's quite interesting. Yeah? Well, so prana is everywhere, but when we learn subtle anatomy, we will talk about particular energy channels and how the energy is circulating in that, and what to do to release the blockages in the energy channels, purify them, and improve the circulation of this vital energy, which affects not only on the physical health, on the mental states as well. So yeah, in an ancient context, normally pranayama is used as the working with the energies. And vital energy is quite often named as the wind or vayu. Vayu, this is the Sanskrit term. It's not a literal meaning, because energy is not the wind. But to try to find the synonym of the energy. Synonym means something that we're familiar already. Wind is or air is very close to this energy, closer than the earth, for example, or fire, right? So it's and sometimes we can see is using only the wind, managing the wind, yeah, in the ancient texts. And I'm going to share the screen now again to illustrate what I'm talking. Wait. Because I want to text, and for you guys I will give the paper now. Okay, hopefully you can see. Maybe you take this one. Yeah, for you guys. Mm-hmm. Okay, can you see? Yeah. I just done a very easy table that when I talk you just know what I'm talking about. Maybe you know it all, yeah? But my job is just to clarify. Again, we talk about this ancient text in the context of pranayama, not talking about other things. Pranayama and of course the goal of yoga, of self-realization. And first of all, I would like to highlight this most sacred texts in India are Vedas. They have 4 volumes or samhitas, and this is the foundation of actually Indian religion also. And Vedas belong to oral transmission, initial oral transmission. They were not written until 19th century. Through the generations they were passing this orally. It's a huge complex of the books. And they are also related to this divine revealed texts. It means that they are considered not created by the human, but transmitted from absolute consciousness or divine directly to the realized humans. Ancient realized, I mean these people who achieved state of self-realization that we already discussed recently. They are called rishis. Vedic rishis. This is this number of the saints, you can say. Saints or people who achieved state of self-realization and who in their state of self-realization they got this information directly from the divine and they were transmitting this through the generations, so from teacher to disciple, through the centuries and thousands of years. In fact, nobody can ever tell the dates of when Vedas were created. They are considered to be eternal. But we are not going to talk where did they come from and all these theories. We don't need that. We just need to know where is pranayama here, in this Vedas. Vedic yoga, because in Vedas we can also find reference to yoga, but the term yoga is normally used there as some practical equipment to manage something, to manage the horse, for example, or vehicle, or a number of the things. But don't forget that ancient texts in Indian tradition are written in Sanskrit, and Sanskrit is a very rich language. It has so many terms that we don't have in English, and some terms may have up to 10 meanings. The same word can have up to 10 meanings depending on the context. So sometimes you read this book or that book, and different teachers translate the same terms in different way. It might be a little bit confusing in the beginning. After some time, it's okay. Let's be open-minded. So the most ancient mantras that I actually put into the book I have sent you, they also from Vedas. This mantras, from Vedas. Why I talk about the mantras, I will explain now also, because during the ancient pranayama techniques they used mantras and they still use in some schools, but this is a very advanced form of pranayama. I will also explain, and I have also the presentation for that. Let's explain me about how we can understand about pranayama in Vedas. The founder of yoga, or the founder of yoga and the first teacher of yoga in Indian tradition is considered as Lord Shiva. That's why you have so many pictures in the room who've been here. Shiva. In Vedas, Shiva is called Rudra. And we have actually some reference to Shiva in Vedas, but also Rudra is the Lord of the wind, Lord of the wind in Vedas. And as you remember in ancient texts, vital energy quite often called wind or air. And Vedas are very symbolic. This is very, very ancient text. It's older than Old Testament, and sometimes when we open it, we just don't understand a word when we try to read original one. So we need to have some education and understanding of the basic Sanskrit to really understand what does it mean, in there. So we cannot understand Vedas literally. It's very much symbolic, and it talks a lot about the states of the consciousness and a number of the things. I can recommend you some books, the commentaries on Vedas if you want to know more. But let's talk about pranayama now and the wind. So, Lord of the wind or air in Vedas is modern Shiva. Modern, I mean, because the Shiva is a modern name. The old one, Vedic name is normally Rudra. And you don't have a direct explanation of the pranayama practices in Vedas, but we have their indirect explanation of them. Indirect, not literal, but indirect, or hints on pranayama. Let me tell exactly. So we see many things on pranayama as this frequent extolling of the power of prana and prana or vital energy. And we have mantras for mantras to Lord Shiva as well, which you have in your book, mantra of the defeating the death. How these mantras are related to pranayamas, I will explain now, because I will show you another radio categories here. Hopefully you can see. Yeah. So as you know that pranayama has very strict guidelines. Pranayama is not freestyle of breathing exercises. It has always ratios, like the duration inhalation, of exhalation, the duration of the retention of the breath. Depending on techniques, it varies. Depending on the level of practitioner, it's very. We are going to study it all. But generally, we can classify, a part of many other classifications, two main approach into pranayama practice. The first one means, guys, take this one. This is additional one, that you can see it, yeah? Samavritti pranayama. Sama means same and vritti means to move. Inhalation, exhalation and retention of the breath normally is equal. Who practice pranayama with us, that you know that we have different approach here for the reason. Why this first approach into pranayama practice is mostly used for the schools who use mantra recitation during pranayama, mental mantra recitation. Yeah? So you have the same number of syllables to recite in your mind during inhalation, retention and exhalation. Yeah? So everybody knows the mantra. So this is sacred, it's not a prayer, this is the sacred number of the syllables in Sanskrit. When we talk about Indian yoga, it's all in Sanskrit only. And most ancient mantras we can find in Vedas that were discovered by rishis or realized people in a state of self-realization and transmitted to their disciples. Mantras sometimes explained as a cosmic sound, which creates vibration, specific vibrations in all dimensions of our being. Sometimes they are called even as spell or hymn or some other things. So this is the sacred syllabuses that can change environment around you and can change you from within. But in Indian tradition, mantra is giving as empowerment from teacher to disciple. It's not something I look on YouTube and I try to repeat. So when the student or disciple is ready, the teacher or guru, normally it's at some degree realized teacher, transmit the mantra to the disciple. The pronunciation is essential. I will give you an example. I really love it. Pronunciation is how you pronounce that, the sound. Yeah, this is very, very important. One teacher said, imagine you need to make a phone call to the God. It's a funny example. I just like it. Yeah, you should not understand it literally. And to call to the God, you need to have a number to call. If number is incorrect, you can never reach God by phone. So if you pronounce mantra correctly, this is the right number. Yeah. So incorrectly, there is no use. Yeah. And mantra starts to work also after some time. There's certain mental conditions and frequency of repetitions. Why I talk about mantra right now? First of all, because in Vedas are all transmitted as a chanting hymns and a lot of mantra chanting, the Vedas all. Yeah? Pranayama is mentioned there as a control of the energy also, and wind. And the ancient pranayama approach mostly along with the mantra recitation. So when you take control of your breath in a specific way, inhale, hold your breath and exhale in ancient approach. The mantra repetition has to be done in the mind, because you cannot do it verbally if you do this breath control, not possible. So, but this is internal, because mantras can be done through this verbal recitation or whispering very silently, and mental repetition. So this approach to pranayama, samavriti pranayama, this is equal duration, inhale, exhale, and retention, this aspects of pranayama, normally along with the mantra recitation. So recitation of the mantra creates, when it comes to energy, creates this special subtle vibration of energy within the channels which are piercing the body, and effect on energy flow in the channels and releasing the blockages as well. This is super powerful practice, and to get the mantras from the teacher, we need to have a real school who deals with that. Here we use another approach. This is Visamavriti pranayama, which we use counting, and this is mostly accessible for everyone, because you don't so we can use beginners different variations of the breath up to more advanced, using the counting in the mind. And here there are a lot of variations of ratios, means there's combination of inhalation, exhalations, and retention depending on technique, depending on the level of the practitioner, mental state, physical state, and a number of the things. Yeah. So with Samavriti pranayama, we are going to use this approach here. You start already at 12:30. Yeah. So with which you start your practice. This one. Yeah. This is what I wanted to mention about. So in Vedas, pranayama and also later in Upanishads are mostly in this first approach, Samavriti, so along with the mantras. It's quite interesting. And this is a huge field to study. I'm going to share the text now again. Yeah. So the Vedas, we are not going to do the mantra pranayama here, no. We may do some chanting a little bit, but more like additional technique, but not along with the mental recitation. We will use counting here just to, again, remind you how we do. Okay. Yeah. This is about the what I wanted to say about the Vedas in the context of pranayama, because there are many things to say about Vedas. But in the context of ancient pranayama, right? Again, is used as the managing of the vital energy and along with the mantra recitation. In Vedas, big emphasis on the mantra recitations. Yeah, mantra recitation. And another complex of the books where we can find a reference on pranayama practices is Upanishads. Yeah, you have it also. It also classified as a divinely revealed text, means again God from divine through realized people, not created by human. They are more philosophical and a little bit later texts, and already like after Vedas. And in Upanishads we have more clear explanation of their yoga philosophy. Actually quite clear about absolute consciousness, about individual consciousness, about the relationships, about the law of karma, yeah, the reason, the source of suffering, a number of the things, and techniques are also mentioned there. Pranayama and meditation are mentioned there. I already prepared the quotes from Upanishads. They say, just as the impurities of mountain minerals are burned by the blower, so the stains caused by the sensory organs are burned by controlling the prana. In Upanishads, pranayama quite often is synonym of retention of the breath. When we talk about different approach to the teaching of pranayama, we will see that some schools of Indian yoga, they make an emphasis on exhalation. Exhalation. We will talk why also, because it's actually more purifying. Some schools of Indian yoga make more emphasis on the holding of the breath. And the way they comment the ancient texts, they also comment them differently. Yeah, they see different things, but all are good. All pranayama practices are good. Different approach, as I said, different methods here and there, but the goal and authority of the Sanskrit texts are the same. Yeah. So sometimes these teachers in the 20th century specifically developed their own approach into pranayama practice, like yoga of Iyengar, if you know. But Pattabhi Jois has also his own things, and Shivananda yoga. So we have the different methods within pranayama, but they share the same goal. Yeah. Also, a little bit more Upanishads. One who knows the significance of the ascending and descending of inhalation and exhalation is the knower of yoga. Yeah. There are many references to pranayama in Upanishads, but more in philosophy context, because their particular practices in Indian yoga tradition were never given through the books, only direct transmission from teacher to disciple. Same as the mantras, same for the concentration techniques, and same for the pranayama techniques, and also asana in some schools. Yeah. So it's a little bit of not possible in ancient Indian environment to study from the book. Some texts were transmitted orally, and the practitioners were memorizing them, and it's like more additional information to support the personal practice. Yeah. So Upanishads, this is the essence of yoga philosophy, and pranayamas there is also mentioned as one of the practices for the yoga practitioner. And in Upanishads we can see yoga already not as a tool to manage something, but already as a system of mental and physical practices, which means Hatha yoga approach. Yeah. Okay. Upanishads is around 220 books. Yeah, quite big complex of the books, and there are early Upanishads and later Tantric Upanishads. Some of the Upanishads I can also recommend to read, because Upanishads they are designed in a very poetical way, like dialogues or questions answers. So it's not that heavy philosophical book that difficult to read. So it's something that you can enjoy reading or use audio book. Yeah. So that's why we already have this very ancient pranayama references in these sacred books, quite interesting. What is the next one? Yeah, Mahabharata. This is another text I wanted to highlight regarding where we can also find some information about pranayama, specifically in Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita, this is the part of Mahabharata, one of the books within Mahabharata, and in Bhagavad Gita we can find this information about different branches of yoga, jnana or jnana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, yeah, all this that we already discussed today, because Bhagavad Gita, this is the text about yoga, and specifically in this text we can see the information about managing the inhalation, exhalation, and retention. But again, they make an emphasis on reciting of the mantras mentally. Again, we talk about ancient pranayama techniques. So in there, they have very direct information about this mantra recitation during pranayama practice. So we can find there. Okay, and then Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, classical yoga. This is something that normally we study in details because Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, this is called classical yoga. There are a number of texts on yoga, but only one is considered officially as a classical yoga, is Yoga Sutras. This is philosophical text which has 4 chapters, and each chapter has a number of the short definitions and sentences which actually describes the full system of yoga, the goals of yoga, and the methods of yoga, and it describes different states of consciousness on the path. It's very interesting. And we have sutras about pranayama in Yoga Sutras, so we will also talk about them in details. In what context it is used, and what is effect of pranayama according to Yoga Sutras. It's very interesting. So I will do the quick overview now, and then we have a quick break, and then we continue because I don't want I don't want to be too much on the first day. So we come back to Yoga Sutras. We come back maybe today, maybe not today, but it's something that we need to pay attention to when it comes to pranayama. And another one, Yoga Yajnavalkya. This is early text on also description of the pranayama practices and some other yoga practices. Already more details are given. So more information about prana, about the concept of vital energy in Yoga Yajnavalkya. And I also prepared the quote for you from there just to illustrate a little bit. They say in Yoga Yajnavalkya that in this book also equates pranayama with retention, describing 3 grades of pranayama depending on the periods of breath holding. So the pranayama produces sweating, pranayama produces tremor in addition to sweat, and produces levitation, supernatural powers. Actually in ancient yoga, supernatural powers, this was not something too much extraordinary, because not many people practice yoga, and if they practice yoga, normally they dedicate all their life to the yoga practice, which averagely includes 8 hours of pranayama a day. It depends on the school, of course, but 8 hours of pranayama, 2 hours 12 p.m., 2 hours 6 p.m., 2 hours midnight, and 2 hours 6 a.m. A part of mantras, recitation rituals, some asana practice to support the physical body, and of course concentration techniques and some others that yoga includes. It's quite interesting. So because pranayama is one of the main practices in the system of hatha yoga. There are some preparatory practices before we start pranayama, even beginner's pranayama or asana or cleansing techniques, and pranayama themselves, it's one of the most important practices within hatha yoga system, which uses body-mind techniques. So if you have time, could be nice also to look through Yoga Yajnavalkya as the earliest evidence of pranayama. Okay. As I said, there are more scripts. I just put few in a list, because our aim is not to go through all the text, just a little bit to illustrate, to see the ancient truths of the practice we are going to do. to see that it was thousands of years before, and then how it was practiced, and what we have now, and how we can use it. Yeah, interesting. Okay, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. I jumped through a number of centuries now. We actually skip Tantric Upanishads because we're not going into Tantric studies here, unless we have extra time and we can use for Tantra. But here we mostly use Hatha Yoga practices of pranayama for this course. Yeah. So Hatha Yoga Pradipika by Svatmarama. This is the one of the earliest texts with a description of the practices. Particular technical description of the practice. As I said before, you could not have technical description of the practice. Mostly philosophical or symbolic explanation. But in Hatha Yoga Pradipika you can get the guidelines, how to do this or that, how to place your leg, how to do abdominal manipulation. Of course, we should also understand that this text of Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it also belongs to the specific Indian yoga school. And it has their own traditions, they have their own vocabulary, yeah, the terms they use. And this is I would say supplement book for the existing personal practice. If I have no yoga experience, I know nothing, I didn't practice before, I don't know any teacher, I just take the book and try to understand what is there, I will fail to perform because it's just not that clear enough. So the teacher has to explain, taking in account individual details normally. But anyway, for practitioners who have already existing practice, it's nice to have a look in there and see their description of the practices we are going to practice during this course. Yeah, I'm not going to name them now because you will start them already 12:30 here, and will be very clear. And after Hatha Yoga Pradipika, we already have more and more texts, later texts, more explanation of the techniques, already practical texts. Yeah. So from Hatha Yoga Pradipika we start this particular explanation of the practices texts. Granda Samhita, this is also the book which is dedicated to explanation of the practices, which has more practices than Hatha Yoga Pradipika. I put it in your book actually, this reference to Granda Samhita, and just if you are interested you can look through to improve your knowledge. Yeah. And now of course you can get all possible tutorials on pranayama in this digital era. Yeah. Okay, so I would suggest to take a quick break of, let's say, 7 minutes, that you can refresh yourself, and then we continue, because as I said, don't want to be too heavy, because you already tried them, so you can understand what we are talking about. And Rich will take, another teacher, he will take all anatomical aspects, all practical aspects during this course, and all the questions regarding processes in the body, about techniques like what muscle involved, what internal organ involved, and all these things. If you have these questions during the course, they need to be addressed to Rich. Yeah, and he's here every day. Yeah, he's responsible for all these things. I will take more like a philosophy thing, and I think I will also do some practical classes of the practice, but not tomorrow, not today, I think. Yeah. Okay, so we just had, we start again. Yeah, we just had a very quick overview, generally about this and that, just to get a general idea about this and that, about yoga, about a little bit of pranayama, but we didn't talk about pranayama yet. Before we talk about pranayama, I would like to talk first about the concept of vital energy, and also about the consciousness, about their relationships, and about understanding and goal of yoga according to classical Indian yoga. Yeah, because there is so much information in everywhere in internet, might be a little bit confusing. So I always suggest to have a strong foundation in your personal practice and to have your foundation in your own understanding of the things, to refer to these traditional guidelines. Then you're not going to be lost. So all these traditional guidelines, what we can always refer to Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. This is classical yoga. It has explanation what is pranayama and what is yoga, what is everything. Yeah. So you're not going to be lost if you stick to, for example, Yoga Sutras. Yeah. You're not going to be lost if you want to know more about philosophy, if you stick to Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita. It's very clear. You don't need to go into this assumptions of some modern teachers about this and that. You always have a source, original source. Yeah? The language might be a little bit heavy, but you can always find nice translation that suits to you, and read it or listen to these some lectures of the Indian professors. Not Indian, but some. Yeah? Okay. We will also talk, not today, but we will talk about, as I mentioned, 5 layers of human existence, and we will see where this energy within the human being, because pranayama works directly with the energy, and we also talk about 5 types of the energy within the body, of the human body, which corresponds to 5 physiological systems of the human body. But again, in my classes, I'm not going to talk much about this benefits for the health or contraindication something. This is all Rich is going to explain you during his classes. Yeah, I will mention, but then Rich will explain in more details, because he's anatomy fan, he's passionate about this, and he knows it very, very well. Yeah. My job is here to create this structure of the whole concept, that you have a very clear understanding about the whole system of yoga, where pranayama is in the system, what are the methods and goals. Yeah, traditionally. Didn't say it yet, but just to remind you that in the traditional Indian schools, they follow parampara. This is the Sanskrit term. It's not belong to Ashtanga only, it's actually belong to Indian school or religious institution. Parampara, means literally one to another. What does it mean? That it's a transmission and empowerment from guru to disciple. This is the lineage of transmission. If you open Hatha Yoga Pradipika, you can see this in the very beginning, these names of the teachers through the centuries, who was teaching whom. Yeah. Now, for us, it doesn't make any sense, but for the Indian environment, it's important. So you can always see where the teaching comes from, and also it's important to preserve the practice, the origins of that, because if we keep modifying, if we keep doing whatever we want, then we dilute the practice till then it will not exist anymore. Yeah, that's why. So parampara, this is a transmission and of the practices and knowledge from guru to disciple. And guru, this is the title. We cannot call whomever we want guru. In traditional Indian environment, this is sort of like how you say in English, not a degree, but position that you get in the institution because of your achievements, yeah, in a practice and theory and ability to teach. So this is the title. In the Western environment, we say whatever, guru is like commonly used, yeah. So it doesn't have that authentic meaning when we keep talking about this and joking about this. But in a traditional Indian environment, guru is a person who already got maybe some degree of self-realization, because self-realization also has stages according to Yoga Sutras, and already overcome the obstacles that we are struggling now. So he knows, he already been there, he can teach. If you don't know, if you've not been there, what you can teach, yeah? So the personal practice is important. And through the years, many years, or maybe lifetime, in this particular yoga school or institution, a religious institution, because the term parampara and term guru, this is not related to only this Ashtanga yoga or specific Indian school of yoga. This is commonly used within Indian environment. Yeah? And these terms have a meaning. Okay, now we talk a little bit about prana or vital energy. Prana, this is a Sanskrit name, sometimes translated also as the breath, but mostly commonly used as vital energy, and synonym of prana is also vayu. Depending on the text, prana vayu, for example, may mean some specific types of energies, but we will see it afterwards, just for you to know. So prana, this is the vital energy or force that sustains every being or object in the universe. When the human being just conceived in the mother's womb, this embryo or this new life is getting already some quantum of prana. So everyone is born with certain quantity and quality of prana, and it's not equal to everyone, because some people are born very healthy, for example, because it's also a reflection of their prana, and some kids or baby infants have issues when they are born or even in mother's womb. It also depends. It's in the Indian tradition, yoga tradition, they explain it through this concept of previous actions which were done in previous lives, which is called karma. We will take time also to discuss the thing, because it's also a big topic about the human consciousness and subconscious mind. And as I said, we cannot distinguish different layers or dimensions of a human being completely. They're all interconnected, like subconscious mind and conscious mind and vital energy. They're so close. They piercing each other. They affect on each other. So you cannot really just take on the prana and talk only about the prana without talking about the mind. It's not possible. It's a yoga's integral path. It includes the body, mind, and vital energy in one system, and one effect on another. So when I talk about prana, I will refer to consciousness, I will refer to body, and when I talk about consciousness, I also will talk about prana. So it's like this, yeah? So we come back to prana. In human body, this vital energy flows through the energy channels, which is called, the energy channel is called nadi. We will have special time to discuss these energy channels, some of them, their names, and how the prana flows in them, but now it's just general overview. So in the human body, we have energy channels, and through them, the vital energy flows. Energy channels, like any other channels, can have blockages, can have impurities in them, which prevent the free flow of the energy. On a physical level, it causes diseases or ailments, health issues, let's say like this, minor or major, depends on, and also the condition of the energy channels in terms of the blockages are defined by our mental states. As I said, today we talk generally overview, and then we take our time. Next time we will talk about understanding of the consciousness and mental states, where do they come from and how it's all happening, to see the effect on energy flow, yeah? And also how breathing can help with that. It's very interesting. I'm excited already. But let's come back to prana. In a human body might be different texts say different figures, but averagely it says around 72,000 of energy channels, and they're very subtle, that much subtle that you can find this comparison with the human hair. If you take one hair from your head and split it along 1,000 times, this is how subtle is energy channel. Very, very subtle. And this is more fascinating is that the energy channel has also different layers in that. So from gross to more subtle, the main one has these 3 layers. So it's like a huge system. We don't need to go to that right now, but it's interesting. So prana or vital energy is inherent to every being. So we all have it. And we have external sources to get more energy from outside. And we also have regenerate and improve the quantity and increase the quantity and improve the quality of prana within ourselves through the yogic practices of pranayama. So outside we get and inside we get. When prana leaves the body dies. So on the moment of death, prana is leaving the object or body, and body start to decompose like the natural process of what's happening after death. It's in Hatha Yoga Pradipika they say life is called when prana in the body. When prana leaves the body, this is called death. So it's a vital force. This is how we live. So when we are conceived, we already have some, and then throughout our lifetime, we get it from outside, we regenerate it from inside through the states of the consciousness, and also for the yoga practitioners through some breathing exercises and also lifestyle. From outside we get it first of all from the air. So the quality of air is quite important, and the way we breathe, because most of us we breathe unconsciously and we don't use our capacity of the breath. Rich will explain it, how many liters in the lungs and what you use and stuff like that. But for now we just know that we don't use a full capacity of our breathing system, and we breathe normally, all of us, irregular and shallow, because it's unconscious breathing. It's our natural function, and we normally don't pay attention to that. If you practice meditation where we use the object of meditation, observation of the breath, then it's more conscious, but it's not a control of the breath, it's just observation. So in pranayama practices, we really manage the breath and change the breathing patterns. This is interesting. So throughout the lifetime we deplete also our energies and energy level, and when we are getting older and older, if you don't do anything, so we become weaker and weaker, and this is also a natural process of aging. But for the yoga practitioner, the real yoga practitioner who practice regularly, then he can reverse the process in terms of the regenerating the sources of prana or energy within the body. Highest levels of pranayama is not even using the breath, but through the concentration. We're not going in there because we will just learn how to breathe. But I talk about advanced practitioners. So, and in the pranayama we have this 4 aspects of the breath: inhalation, exhalation, retention of the breath after inhalation, and retention of the breath after exhalation. This is what we are going to use during our pranayama practices. And each aspect has its own effect on the body and on the mind. So in pranayama, through the breath control in the different ratios or formulas we say here, we are able to affect on energy flow. Increase the level of the energy, purify the energy channels, and allow this vital energy to flow freely. And of course, it has this healing effect on the body and very strong effect on the mind. The yoga practices which are using the breath, actually, in Hatha Yoga as one of the yogas in our classification, the breath control is used widely. It's quite a lot used in asana and in pranayama. If you practice Ashtanga, then you know that the breath is actually the essence of the practice. The breathing pattern directly affect on the mind, and the mental condition directly affect on the breath pattern. So if you have a stress, suddenly unexpected stress, your breathing pattern will change straight away. But to release the stress, you can manage your breath and effect on your mind. So if the stress happens and you develop some degree of awareness and mindfulness, so you can observe your condition. So through observation of the breath and changing the pattern of the breath, you can release the mental stress. It's just interesting how the breathing is directly linked to the mental condition. And so vital energy and the consciousness are very much close, but consciousness is a more subtle than energy. You know subtle? More subtle layer consciousness is sustains the existence of more gross prana, for example. Like prana is more subtle than the physical body, but it allows the body to exist. If there is no prana, there is no body. So prana lives, the body decomposing. So the consciousness supports the existence of prana. So prana and consciousness are very close to each other, and they affect on each other all the time. And this is interesting that in yoga concept, as I said, the universal energy which is everywhere, the pranic force, like a matrix. Every object has this certain degree of energy. Even inanimate object, it just has this different quality and quantity of prana than human being, but it's still universal prana. Also, consciousness is everywhere. I will mention it now and then I will clarify a little bit. So prana is everywhere and consciousness is everywhere. Consciousness, I don't mean that something external to us. Consciousness, I don't mean this capacity of self-reflection or logical or capacity of sensomotor mind or logic intellect. I don't mean that. I mean universal consciousness, which a human being also has in the manifestation of our conscious mind, unconscious mind, and subconscious mind. So what is interesting that since prana is everywhere as a matrix, consciousness is also everywhere. So every object has some degree of prana and consciousness, but it doesn't mean it has central nervous system, the object. I don't mean this. So mean that inanimate objects also have some degree of consciousness. This is directly linked with this yogic philosophy of non-dualistic approach. Non-dualistic means there is non-dual means non-two. So means everything in universe is one absolute consciousness in its different manifestations. For us, being rooted in our mentality, grounded in our mentality, it's uncomfortable concept because, as I said, we like to think that we are unique and separate from everything. That just makes us valuable. But at the same time, being now in yoga course, we cannot ignore this main concepts of Indian yoga philosophy. Because the practical part of Indian philosophy is non-separate from this theory. Because theory, this is practical the verbal manifestation of the practice in Indian philosophy. Okay, non-dualistic approach means that absolute consciousness or universal consciousness is everywhere, eternal, omnipresent. Your true self is also eternal, and honestly, according to Advaita Vedanta or non-dualistic approach, it's also non-separate from the universal consciousness. On the moment of self-realization, realizing your true self, so this is experience of that, we have this experience of not being separate, not being caged in our individual self, which constitutes not only the body but also the mental condition of ego. Ego means I principle, me. This is what makes me. With number of the qualities, what I have, what I think I have, maybe my ideas about myself, my beliefs and stuff like that. I said uncomfortable concept, but we cannot avoid talking about it when we here talk about yoga, what to do. Again, don't be confused about consciousness everywhere. It doesn't mean that it's like a horror movie, everything can move and self-reflect. So I mean that universal consciousness as like a divine interplay of the things. So I'm not, in my true self, I'm not different from you guys. We are all the same. The sense of separation brings suffering, because if I'm separate from you, I start to establish relationships with you. I can suffer from what you tell to me, or I can suffer that I don't get something from you. I always miss something, I always get something because I am separate. But if I'm everywhere, if I'm eternal, I have everything. I don't need to crave for everything. I cannot suffer because suffering is also mental. I don't talk about physical suffering now. I talk about mental suffering, because if someone breaks the leg, I cannot say there is no suffering and sorry, you feel pain. So it's we're not that much here cuckoo. About mental suffering, that I always want something or I don't want something throughout my life, and all my life is designed by me either to get something or avoid something at different degrees. Sometimes I want something very, very badly, or sometimes a little bit, but it's still wanting something. Or I try to avoid something unwanted like crazy, or a little bit, So, but it's still the same pattern of avoiding, craving and aversion, so we move like that. So, I'm talking about the sense of separation now, the consciousness thing. So we are raised in this environment where we don't see any other way of living. But yoga helps, through these technical practices, can help us to have these glimpses of experiences in the beginning of being ourselves as eternal and completely free from their identifications. Identifications, I mean identifying with my emotions, mental concepts, bodies and stuff like that. One of my yoga teachers of philosophy and Yoga Nidra, he was saying that, because he's also a hypnotherapist, and he was saying that a big part of mental tension, biggest part of mental tension of humans is that we identify with our bodies so much. So a lot of issues, mental issues, come with a very strong identification with the body. That's why yoga can provide a number of the practices to loosen this very strict identification and to have a little bit of break, mental break from these identifications. In Yoga Nidra we have it, so we do it regularly here. Okay. We are again coming back to self-realization. Okay, so prana and consciousness are together. They are like friends. But prana is the energy which sustains their life, but also conditioned by the mental states. Okay, and so when we inhale the air, it doesn't mean that the air is energy. So some processes are happening that increasing the level of energy within ourselves. Yeah, that's why the quality of air is so important when we talk about the external sources of prana. Yeah, the quality of air. You can also rely or refer to your personal experience of how you feel, because the way physically you feel and mentally you can analyze how you feel, it's also quite often related to some external conditions. What I mean, external sources of the energy. If you will be closed in a small room with no windows, with many people inside, the air is going to be not that good, and you may feel either lethargic or anxious. Directly affects on the mind, and physically also like not well. But if you are going to be in a forest after the rain, for example, there are no people, yeah, so you feel very energized, yeah, you feel happy, you feel different. Yeah. So the external quality, the external source of prana, air, the most important one, because if you don't breathe, you cannot live. You can stay without water and without food for some time, but with no air, normally we cannot live. So we get the energy with every inhalation. The quality of the water and food is also essential, because it also brings the information within and quality of the energy and affects on the state of the mind as well. That's why normally if you read this Hatha Yoga Pradipika, let's refer to Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it says first that after body being purified through the cleansing techniques and establishing a healthy diet, and when asana is practiced with ease, pranayama can be started. Yeah? So that's why we in Ashtanga they have this first practice asana for some time. Yeah? So again, before, normally according to this Hatha Yoga Pradipika, let's refer to this one, first purifying the body, establishing a healthy diet, and practicing asana with ease. After that, pranayama can be started, because pranayama requires high degree of concentration, and the practice such as cleansing techniques and asana are preparing for the pranayama. Normally, ideally, pranayama could be practiced after physical exercise, so the body is ready. And in a traditional approach, pranayama is practiced with no move. So you sit in your normally lotus position or a crossed legs position, and with no move, performing the breath. We're not going to do like that. We will follow approach of our teachers. So we will take some break after each technique we practice during these 2 hours, because we are not, our group here is not very much experienced in pranayama practice. You guys have experience, but we still don't know you personally much. So we will start from the foundations. Yeah? We're not going to kill ourselves here with intensive breath. Yeah. So the food has, the food we intake brings information and effects on the mental states. It can actually distract your concentration quite a lot. One of my friends said recently that, I had too much carbs. Now I feel like really, really sleepy. So the having too much carbs, and then the concentration is not really there. Yeah. So please don't eat before pranayama practice. Yeah? But I'm not going to talk now about being vegetarian and stuff like that. Just using the common sense, if you follow yogic concept, we can also trace or track back where the food comes from, what energy it contains, what information it contains, and what we put in ourselves. Like in Upanishads, they have this famous statement: the subtle energy of your food becomes your mind. Yeah. With yoga, we develop some degree of sensitivity more and more with yoga practice, because a lot of purification is involved. I will explain also, not today, but on another class, why in yoga we do that much purification techniques, why it's so important to be conscious of the eating, what we eat, how does it affect all on a personal practice. It doesn't mean that we ask you to follow something, we just discuss how it is in yoga system. I keep talking about the mind because energy and mind, as I said, we cannot really separate them and talk only about the energy. And as I said, that in the energy which flows through the energy channels in our body, which we can affect through the breathing exercises, because breath is directly linked with the energy and directly linked with the mind. So this individual prana is a part of universal prana. So again, according to the yogic science, me, human being, is this body which has a physical body and energy and consciousness, is not separated completely from the entire universe. It is a part of it. Normally, I don't feel it and I don't realize that because of my identifications and sense experiences. Sense experiences because I look from outside and I didn't, sense experiences also make us feeling ourselves separate. In yoga practices, we have also this important aspect of taking control of the senses and not following them blindly. So, but on the moment of self-realization, the vibration of individual prana within the body comes into the perfect balance with the vibration of universal prana. When you talk about energy, I like to talk about vibrations because it's something like we can all understand, we can all visualize because they have the energy vibrating. And again, referring to mantras recitation, it also brings into the balance of vibration after some repetitions, after years spent for the practices, not once in a while. So we come into this perfect balance and harmony with the universe, and it affects on consciousness as well. So consciousness has this experience of realizing itself as being universal. And this is absolute happiness. I don't mean this emotional imbalances, oh I'm so happy, oh I'm so sad, So I don't mean these fluctuations of the mind, I mean beyond that, Because according to classical yoga is restraint of the fluctuations of the mind. I like, I don't like, this is things that we go beyond in yoga, beyond that, we overcome that. Not suppressing, not denying this, but overcoming to different degree of different dimension of consciousness. So on an energy level and on a consciousness level, on the moment of self-realization, we are experience ourselves of being the one with the universe, where ego principle is dissolving. But again, this self-realization has different degrees, stages. I mean, beginner's stage, I like this beginner stage of self-realization. It's like really bizarre. But the first stages, and I think up to 12 stages of self-realization. So beginning, it's just glimpses of that and coming back because we still have a lot of conditionings and identifications. And on the highest stage of self-realization, all conditionings are released. All identifications are released. It then doesn't mean erasing the memory, I don't mean that, no, but erasing emotional coloring, attachments, and the conditioning from within. This is the topic for the yoga psychology and subconscious mind, and since subconscious mind processes directly affect on the pranic flows, energy flows, and directly affect on processes in the body also, as well as in energy. So we will spend some time to discuss it during this course again, because as I said, cannot deny different aspects of this yoga system. So this is it's quite interesting. regarding the prana concept. So we are going, during pranayama classes, practical classes, we are going to use our breath in a different ways to affect on the energy channels. But during the practical classes, we will talk more about anatomical processes in the body. Yeah? First of all, we have to understand what is happening and how to manage this. And each technique has its own rules. Because pranayama, as I said, it's not freestyle of the breathing. It has very specific guidelines. And each technique has its own guidelines. May differ from school to school, but they are actually quite similar. And like Patabhi Joy said, just sitting and breathing in and out is not pranayama. Only specific guidelines for combination, inhalation, exhalation, and retention of the breath with application of energetic clocks or bandhas can be called pranayama. Yeah. So. The difference between pranayama and breathing exercises are highlighted in a number of yogic texts in the modern and ancient, that pranayama must have retention of the breath and must have application of the locks or bandhas, energetic locks, which will take his time for tutorial for this bandhas in details, and he will explain the technical details. Yeah. So normally here, this is one of the questions for exam for our 200 hours course. What is the difference between breathing exercising and pranayama practices? Normally, pranayama practices has to have breath retention, application of the locks, which are going in conjunction with each other. Breathing exercises may not have retention of the breath. For example, the first practice we normally start during the practice class, this is Kapalabhati. And it is classified as a cleansing technique because it has no breath retention and effect directly on purification of the frontal part of the brain. Yeah? So we this as the preparation to more complex practices. So it's energizing practice as well as the cleansing. Yeah, Kapalabhati. So we will start with that on the next class. Yeah, and yeah. That's why, but any breathing exercises are beneficial for the health and mental states if it's rhythmic, either slow or faster, or there is no contraindications, because breathing exercises may have contraindications as well, depending on the health conditions. That's why we ask you also to write down if you have any conditions or maybe contraindications for some practices in your registration form. Yeah? For the people we don't know personally. Yeah. Okay. And also during other classes we will talk about the concept of Kundalini, this energy which is so popular now, and we will talk about it not in details but briefly, because we need to understand the general idea about that, and what to do on what not to do with this Kundalini, and what is that, because the modern world is how to say now everywhere you go there is with Kundalini workshops and classes. We will see this perspective of on Kundalini from the Indian schools. Okay, so just concluding, because we are finishing our class in a couple of minutes, and you are going to have 30 minutes break, and after that you are going to have this 2 hours of practice. And yeah. So the concept of prana, this is an important aspect of yoga teaching in general. To effect on the pranic flows in a yoga system, they use control of the breath and concentration. Also visualizations, but as I said, here's a mantra recitations, but here we have how to say, foundations of pranayama. We are not going to very difficult things. Would be nice if you could cover anatomical aspect more. Yeah. Yeah. That was something was speaking and distracted me. Yeah. And the goal of traditional yoga is highlighted as state of self-realization, which is state of the consciousness, which we already discussed, and hatha yoga practices, which include body, the breath, and cleansing techniques, and some basic concentrations. They are a preparatory techniques for the purification and developing discipline, developing strength, stamina, and basic concentration for the higher practices in yoga, such as Raja Yoga, or the transformation of the mind. Generally, yeah. So if we talk generally about the concept, at the same time, some outstanding teachers of 20th century, for example, Krishnamacharya, was stating very clearly that through pranayama practices we can reach the state of self-realization. Yeah. This is quite interesting because normally pranayama is classified as external practice. External means working with the body as preparing the mind for the higher practices. Yeah. We will also talk about the difference between concentration, meditation, and what is that afterwards, and how it all linked with pranayama is quite interesting. Yeah, but for now, like that. So I'm talking about general concept, and you are going to immerse into anatomy and technical details shortly, because as I said, Rich will take not only practical classes but theory classes for his explanations in his perspective. So that's why will be not that much energy consciousness talks in the beginning. Yeah. Okay. So again, please feel free to ask the questions in our WhatsApp messenger or send us email. So maybe something is not clear, we can clarify for everyone again. Yeah. Or maybe I can send you some additional information if you need it. Maybe something was not clear, because if you've not been here before, if you don't know us personally, maybe you're not familiar with the vocabulary or our approach, and this is very normal that maybe it's not clear how we talk, but more you stay with us, I believe it will be more and more clear, and honestly, we will really appreciate if you will ask the questions or send you feedbacks even about technical details, so we can improve and make this course more rich, more interesting, and more satisfying for you. Yeah. Okay. So I think let's go for the break. I will I will end this live session, and then when you come back at 12:30, you will apply again for the, and Rich will let you in for the practice. Yeah. And we have a model today, I think, for the practice. Yeah, someone is going to perform very well for us, so it's good. Okay, so thank you very much. I will see you when I see you, because as I said, Rich will take all the classes for now. Okay, thank you. Bye, bye, bye. Okay, I will go now, and we'll start again in. I need to stop the videos. 12:30. But don't eat. Yes. This as the preparation to more complex practices. So it's energizing practice as well as the cleansing. Yeah, Kapalabhati. So we will start with that on the next class. Yeah, and yeah. That's why, but any breathing exercises are beneficial for the health and mental states if it's rhythmic, either slow or faster, or there is no contraindications, because breathing exercises may have contraindications as well, depending on the health conditions. That's why we ask you also to write down if you have any conditions or maybe contraindications for some practices in your registration form. Yeah? For the people we don't know personally. Yeah. Okay. And also during other classes we will talk about the concept of Kundalini, this energy which is so popular now, and we will talk about it not in details but briefly, because we need to understand the general idea about that, and what to do on what not to do with this Kundalini, and what is that, because the modern world is now everywhere you go there is Kundalini workshops and classes, we will see this perspective of on Kundalini from the Indian schools. Okay, so just concluding, because we are finishing our class in a couple of minutes, and you are going to have 30 minutes break, and after that you are going to have this 2 hours of practice. And so the concept of prana, this is important aspect of yoga teaching in general. To effect on the pranic flows in a yoga system, they use control of the breath and concentration. Also visualizations, but as I said, here's a mantra recitations, but here we have foundations of pranayama. We are not going to very difficult things. Could be nice if you could cover anatomical aspect more. Yeah. That was something was speaking and distracted me. The goal of traditional yoga is highlighted as state of self-realization, which is state of the consciousness, which we already discussed, and Hatha yoga practices, which include body, the breath, and cleansing techniques, and some basic concentrations. They are a preparatory techniques for the purification and developing discipline, developing strength, stamina, and basic concentration for the higher practices in yoga, such as Raja Yoga, or the transformation of the mind. Generally, yeah. So if we talk generally about the concept, at the same time, some outstanding teachers of 20th century, for example, Krishnamacharya, was stating very clearly that through pranayama practices we can reach the state of self-realization. Yeah. This is quite interesting, because normally pranayama is classified as external practice. External means working with the body as preparing the mind for the higher practices. Yeah. We will also talk about the difference between concentration, meditation, and what is that afterwards, and how it all linked with pranayama is quite interesting. But for now, like that. So I'm talking about general concept, and you're going to immerse into anatomy and technical details shortly, because as I said, Rich will take not only practical classes but theory classes for his explanations in his perspective. So that's why there will be not that much energy consciousness talks in the beginning. Yeah. Okay. So again, please feel free to ask the questions in our WhatsApp messenger or send us email. So maybe something is not clear, we can clarify for everyone again. Or maybe I can send you some additional information if you need it. Maybe something was not clear, because if you've not been here before, if you don't know us personally, maybe you're not familiar with the vocabulary or our approach. And this is very normal that maybe it's not clear how we talk. But more you stay with us, I believe it will be more and more clear. And honestly, we will really appreciate if you will ask the questions or send you feedbacks, even about technical details, so we can improve and make this course more rich, more interesting, and more satisfying for you. Yeah. Okay. So I think let's go for the break. I will I will end this live session, and then when you come back at 12:30, you will apply again for and Rich will let you in for the practice. Yeah. And we have a model today, I think, for the practice. Yeah, someone is going to perform very well for us, so it's good. Okay, so thank you very much. I will see you when I see you, because as I said, Rich will take all the classes for now. Okay, thank you. Bye.